Something brought this message to you right now. Not chance, not coincidence, but the precise timing of something that has been building in your life for longer than you realize. You are standing at the edge of a completion, and what is about to be said will confirm something you have already been feeling, but perhaps have not yet allowed yourself to fully believe. You have been carrying a story that was written before you arrived, a narrative handed down through your family, generation after generation, with the same essential shape no matter how the surface details changed. Limitation passed off as reality. Surrender dressed up as wisdom. A ceiling that everyone around you accepted so consistently that it began to look like the sky. You were born into that inheritance. You did not choose it. You absorbed it the way children absorb everything, through proximity, through repetition, through the slow accumulation of watching the people closest to you accept what they accepted, fear what they feared, and stop where they stopped. And for a long time, you moved through the world inside that story without fully recognizing it as a story at all. It felt like fact. It felt like the nature of things. But something happened. There was a moment, maybe a moment of crisis, maybe something quieter than that, maybe just a single clear thought arriving in an ordinary afternoon, when you saw the story for what it was. When you recognized that the limitations you had been living inside were inherited, not inevitable. That what your family accepted did not have to be what you accepted. That the pattern could end. That you could be the place where it ends. There is a woman whose story is worth telling here. She grew up inside a family narrative that told her the same thing every day in 100 different ways. That people like them do not make it. That struggle is just how their family is. That reaching for more is a form of delusion. Her mother believed it. Her grandmother believed it. And for years, so did she. She moved through her life present, but not really alive, going through motions she had not chosen, carrying a weight she had never examined closely enough to question. And then one day she simply refused. Not with a speech, not with a declaration, not with some dramatic turning point that announced itself clearly. She just looked at the pattern and said, "Not this. Not me." And then she did something small. She took a walk. The next day she took another. She started paying attention to what she was consuming, the information she let in, the conversations she stayed in, the company she kept. She started making small choices that pointed in a different direction than the one her inheritance had mapped out for her. Nothing revolutionary, just consistent, quiet refusals. Small acts of choosing differently one after another, day after day. 6 months later, her life looked different. Opportunities she had not pursued began appearing. People began reaching out. Doors opened that she had never knocked on. And what she understood in that moment was not that she had finally become worthy of something. She had always been worthy. What changed was that she had broken the pattern. And when the pattern breaks, everything that was always meant for you has room to arrive. If this message is reaching you in a season where you are actively doing this work, refusing the inherited story, choosing differently day after day, consider supporting this project through the link in the description. It takes real time and intention to bring these words into the world, and your support helps them reach more people who are standing at the same threshold you are standing at now. There is something important to understand about rock bottom. The story you inherited probably told you that hitting bottom means staying there. That falling that far is evidence of the pattern being right, proof that the ceiling was real after all. But that is the spell talking. Rock bottom is where the victim identity finally runs out of room to survive. When you have nothing left to lose and nowhere left to retreat to, the part of you that has been accepting the inherited story, that has been wearing limitation like it belongs to you, finally has to let go. And what comes through when that happens is something that could not have come through any other way. Something harder. Something that does not ask permission from the past to build a different future. Something that takes responsibility instead of waiting for rescue, that moves toward what it is building instead of away from what it fears. The shift from living as someone acted upon to living as someone who acts is not gentle. It is the death of one version of yourself, and the birth of another. But it is the most important shift a person can make. And everything changes when it happens, not the external circumstances immediately, but the internal landscape, the capacity to move, the direction of your energy, the quality of what you are building toward. Here is the way to understand what is happening. Imagine you are the rightful heir to something significant, but the document you were handed at birth was a forgery. It told you that you were disinherited, that you were not worthy, that everything was meant for your struggle and your limitation. And you believed it. You worked as a servant in a house that should have been yours. You accepted far less than you were entitled to, not because you lacked capacity, but because you had been handed a false account of your own inheritance. And then the truth begins to surface. The document was forged. It was never accurate. You were never disinherited. Everything that was withheld from you was always meant for you. And the true account is now being read. That is where you are. The inheritance is being released, not because you finally became worthy of it, but because you were always worthy of it, and you have finally stopped believing the lie that said otherwise. Every refusal, every day you chose differently than your bloodline chose, every moment you held the line when it would have been easier to fall back into the inherited pattern, all of it has been accumulating, building, compounding in ways that are not yet fully visible, but are about to become impossible to miss. The payoff that comes when a generational pattern breaks does not arrive as one thing. It arrives as everything at once. Recognition. People begin to see what you have been becoming in the dark. Opportunity. Doors that were closed begin opening without you forcing them. Ease. Things that required constant effort begin moving on their own momentum. Resources appearing from directions you did not anticipate. A quality of freedom that you have been moving toward for years finally landing as lived experience rather than something you are still working toward. And it does not trickle. Once the pattern is genuinely broken, once the universe has received consistent evidence that you are refusing the inherited story, what comes through with force. Because you have been faithful in the unseen moments. You have held the line when no one was watching. You have made the small refusals day after day without applause, without confirmation, without any guarantee that it was leading anywhere. That kind of faithfulness does not go unacknowledged. It accumulates until the accumulation breaks the surface. What you are looking for as confirmation is already beginning to appear around you. Synchronicities that are too precise to dismiss. People showing up with exactly the message you needed at exactly the right moment. Small signs that the direction you have been moving in is the right one, and that you are closer to the threshold than you knew. Do not dismiss these. Do not wait for more proof before allowing yourself to receive what they are pointing at. They are the beginning of what is coming, not substitutes for it. There is something worth sitting with about the scope of what you are doing. This is not only about your own life. When a generational pattern breaks, the break is not contained to one generation. It echoes forward into everyone who comes after you, and it echoes backward in ways that are harder to explain, but no less real. The children who will grow up in the world you are building will not inherit the same story you inherited. They will start from a different place. They will have access to a different inheritance, one that you are writing right now, in these ordinary days, through these small refusals, through this quiet and persistent choosing differently. You are not just changing your own life. You are changing the story. You are the place where the pattern ends and something new begins. That is not a small thing. That is the most significant thing a person can do, to receive an inheritance of limitation and decide, with full awareness of what it will cost, to refuse it and build something different in its place. The link in the pinned comment is there for anyone who feels moved to support this work. These messages exist to reach people at exactly the moments they need them most, and your support makes that possible. You are not days away from change beginning. Change has already happened. What is coming is the world catching up to what has already shifted inside you. The version of your life that is arriving is not a reward for finally becoming enough. It is the natural consequence of all the choosing you have already done, the compound effect of every day you held the line, every moment you refused the family pattern, every small action you took in the direction of the life you are building. The waiting is almost over. The threshold is right here. And when you look back at this moment from the other side of it, you will understand what it was. The final stretch before the transformation became visible. The last test before the inheritance was fully claimed. Your story, the one you are writing, the one that replaces the inherited narrative, is just beginning, and it belongs entirely to you.